Hi, I'm Rose, and let me take you to a family dinner that changed everything. The smell of roasted chicken and baked potatoes filled the air as I stepped into my mother's house. It was supposed to be a typical evening, the kind where we catch up over good food. I expected some laughter, maybe a bit of the usual family drama, but nothing extraordinary. As I entered, I was greeted with warm hugs and loud chatter. My sister Lily, visibly pregnant, pulled me into a tight hug. "You look great, Rose," she said, though her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Dinner was served, and at first, the conversation flowed easily. Dad recounted his latest fishing trip, and Aunt Mabel complained about her neighbors. But then, as we were finishing our meal, Mom cleared her throat. The room fell silent. "Rose, we need to talk about something important," Mom said, her tone serious. "It's about Lily. She's going through a tough time with a baby coming." I glanced at Lily, who avoided my gaze. "Is everything okay with the baby?" I asked. "The baby's fine," Mom replied. "But Lily needs a proper place to live. Her apartment is too small, and with the baby coming." I waited, feeling a growing sense of unease. "We think it would be best if Lily moved into your house," Mom said bluntly. "You have the space, and it's such a lovely, safe neighborhood for a child." The room seemed to spin. "My house?" I managed to ask, my voice barely steady. "You want me to give up my house?" "It's not forever, dear," Mom said quickly. "Just until Lily gets back on her feet." I looked around the table. Everyone avoided my eyes, except Aunt Mabel, who nodded enthusiastically, as if this were the most reasonable request in the world. "But Mom, I've worked hard for that house." "It's my home," I said, my voice shaking. "I know, honey, but family comes first. Lily needs this." Lily finally spoke up, her voice small. "Rose, I wouldn't ask if I had any other choice." A rush of emotions, anger, disbelief, guilt, washed over me. How could they ask this of me? "Can we talk about this later?" I said, trying to keep my composure. "It's a lot to process." Mom looked disappointed but nodded. "Of course, dear, we'll talk later." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I couldn't focus on the conversation, my mind reeling from the request. It wasn't just the shock of being asked to give up my home. It was how it was done. Publicly, putting me on the spot, expecting me to comply without question. As I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. My own family, the people who were supposed to support and understand me, were asking me to sacrifice my sanctuary. My achievement. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. My house wasn't just a building, it was my safe haven, filled with memories and dreams. The thought of giving it up was unbearable, but the guilt of possibly letting down my sister and family weighed heavily on me. This wasn't just a request. It was a test of my loyalty, a challenge to my independence. I was torn between the pressure to conform to my family's expectations and the need to stand up for myself. This dinner had set the stage for a conflict I never imagined. As I drifted off to sleep, one thing was clear: the days ahead were going to be some of the toughest I ever faced. The next morning, I sat at my desk, the events of the previous night replaying in my mind. The request to give up my home, a place I had worked so hard for, was all I could think about. Mark, my colleague and friend, noticed my troubled expression. "Hey Rose, you seem off today. What's going on?" he asked, leaning against my desk. I let out a deep breath. "It's a family thing. They want me to give up my house for Lily." Mark looked genuinely surprised. "Your house? But you've worked so hard for it." "I know," I replied, a lump forming in my throat. "I've nearly broken my back paying off that mortgage, and now, just because Lily is pregnant, I'm expected to hand it over." As the day progressed, my predicament spread through the office. I hadn't intended to share it with everyone. But once Mark knew, it didn't take long for the news to circulate. During lunch, Janet from HR cornered me. "Rose, I heard about your situation. But surely your sister needs the house more than you, right? Family is family, after all." Her words felt like a punch in the gut. "It's not that simple, Janet. I've sacrificed a lot for that house. It's not just a building to me." Later during a team meeting, I overheard a hushed conversation behind me. "If it were me, I'd just give up the house. That's what family does for each other," one of my colleagues muttered. It was disheartening to hear my hard work dismissed so easily. Some of my other colleagues, however, offered sympathetic nods and words of encouragement, understanding how unfair the situation felt. The day was a constant struggle between my professional responsibilities and personal turmoil. The societal expectation to prioritize family over personal achievements was evident in the comments I received. It was as if my efforts to build a life for myself were overshadowed by my role as a sister. This wasn't just about my house anymore. It was about my identity, my independence, and my right to make decisions about my own life. The pressure from my family was one thing. Facing similar attitudes at work made me realize the broader societal norms at play. As I left the office that evening, I felt a mixture of frustration and clarity. I knew standing up for myself would be challenging, especially when it went against what so many considered normal or expected. But the more I thought about it, the more the idea of giving in to these pressures, of sacrificing my home and all it represented, became unacceptable. Driving home, I passed familiar streets and landmarks, each one a reminder of my journey to where I was now. My home wasn't just a structure, it was a symbol of my resilience, my independence, and my achievements. When I arrived and stood outside for a moment, taking in the sight of the house I had worked so hard for, the thought of giving it up, especially under such unfair circumstances, only strengthened my resolve. Inside, surrounded by the walls I had painted and the furniture I had carefully chosen, I felt a renewed sense of determination. I knew the road ahead would be tough, full of difficult conversations and potentially strained relationships, but I also knew I needed to stand up for what I believed in, for my right to choose what happened to my home and my life. That night, as I sat in my living room, I made a decision. I wouldn't give up my home without a fight. I had worked too hard to let it go so easily. The pressures I faced at work had shown me the importance of standing up against societal norms that often disregard individual effort and rights. It was time to take a stand, not just for my house, but for my dignity and my right to choose my own path. At the local community center, the weekly neighborhood gathering buzzed with energy and chatter. As a respected member of the community, I had always felt a sense of camaraderie here. Tonight, though, I was here for more personal reasons, to seek advice about the dilemma with my family and my house. As I moved through the crowd, greeted by familiar faces, the topic inevitably surfaced. "So, Rose, this whole thing with your sister and your house must be tough," said Bob, my neighbor from 2 doors down, handing me a cup of coffee. I took a deep breath. It's complicated. I want to do right by my sister, but giving up my home, it's a big ask. "You've worked too hard for that house, Rose," chimed in Sarah from across the street. "It's unfair to expect you to just hand it over." I appreciated Sarah's support, but not everyone shared her view. "Family comes first," Rose, Greg, another neighbor, countered. "Sometimes we have to make sacrifices." The discussion around me grew as others joined in, some siding with Sarah, others agreeing with Greg. The range of opinions reflected the broader societal attitudes toward familial duty and personal rights. Amidst the buzz, Mrs. Jenkins, an elderly neighbor who had always shown me kindness, motioned for me to come over. We found a quieter spot away from the crowd. "Rose, I heard about your situation," she began, her voice soft yet firm. "Many years ago, I faced something similar. My family pressured me to make a sacrifice for my brother. I thought it was the right thing to do." She sighed, a look of regret crossing her face. "I gave in to that pressure, and it's a decision that has stayed with me ever since. I didn't just lose something valuable, I lost a piece of myself. My sense of independence. It took me years to understand the full impact of that choice." I listened intently, seeing the earnestness in her eyes. "Your home is more than just a place to live. It's a testament to your hard work, your resilience. If you give it up under pressure, you might end up feeling like I did, regretful and diminished." Her words resonated deeply. "I'm scared of making the wrong choice," I confessed. Mrs. Jenkins squeezed my hand gently. "It's normal to feel scared. But remember, standing up for yourself isn't just about the house. It's about respecting your own efforts and decisions. You have every right to choose what's best for you, not just what others expect of you." I felt a wave of emotion as her words sank in. "Thank you, Mrs. Jenkins," I said, my voice thick with gratitude. "Your perspective means a lot to me." Leaving the community center that evening, I felt a renewed sense of clarity and determination. The conversation with Mrs. Jenkins had given me the courage I needed. Her regret was a poignant reminder of the importance of making choices that were true to myself, not just giving in to family pressure. As I lay in bed that night, Thoughts of the upcoming confrontation with my family swirled in my mind. I knew it would be one of the toughest conversations of my life. But now more than ever, I was resolved to stand my ground. My home was a symbol of my journey, my struggles, and my achievements. I couldn't let it go without a fight. With a mix of nerves and determination, I invited my family over for what I knew would be a defining moment. The living room was thick with tension as they arrived. Mom, Lily, Dad, and a few aunts and uncles, their expressions ranging from curious to concerned. As everyone settled in, I took a deep breath. "I've called you all here to talk about the house situation," I began, my voice steady despite the racing of my heart. "I understand why you think it's best for Lily to move in here, but I've made my decision." Mom interjected quickly. "Rose, we're family. You should want to help Lily." I nodded, acknowledging her point. "I do want to help Lily, but giving up my home isn't the way. I've worked hard for this house and struggled to pay off every cent of the mortgage. It's not just a building to me, it's a symbol of my independence." There was a pause as my words sank in. "Lily, you're welcome to come over whenever you need to stay if you're in a bind, but I can't give up my home. It's not fair to ask that of me." Lily looked down, her expression a mix of disappointment and understanding. Mom, however, was less receptive. "Rose, you're being selfish. Family should come before everything else," she said sternly. Uncle Jim spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "I think Rose has a point. We can't just expect her to give up everything she's worked for. There has to be another solution." Aunt Mabel chimed in, siding with Mom. "But Lily needs a proper home for her baby. Rose has the space." The conversation turned into a cacophony of opinions. Some relatives argued in favor of family duty, while others defended my right to my home and choices. Amidst the heated discussion, Dad finally spoke, his voice cutting through the noise. "Enough. This is Rose's decision. We should respect it." The tension eased a bit with Dad's words, but the divide was clear. Some family members nodded in agreement while others, including Mom and Aunt Mabel, looked disappointed, even angry. As the evening ended, the rift within the family was palpable. Some relatives left in a huff, while others stayed behind, offering words of support and understanding. Despite the strained relationships, I felt a profound sense of empowerment. I had stood up for myself, set a boundary, and asserted my right to make my own life choices. In the days that followed, I found comfort and support in my neighborhood. I organized a small gathering at my house, inviting those neighbors who had stood by me. It was a humble event filled with laughter and stories, a stark contrast to the tension of the family meeting. As we sat in my backyard, enjoying the evening breeze, I looked around at the smiling faces of my friends and neighbors. This was my support system, a group of people who respected and understood my choices. The journey had been challenging, filled with doubt and confrontation, but it had led me to a place of strength and self-assurance. I had learned the importance of standing up for myself, maintaining my independence, and choosing my own path in life. As the gathering wound down, I stood in my home, a place that was truly mine, and smiled. Though the road ahead might be uncertain and some relationships strained, I was ready to face whatever came next on my terms, in the sanctuary I had fought so hard to keep. And with that, the story of Rose's resolve comes to its conclusion. Now I have a question for you. If you were in Rose's shoes, would you have made the same decision to keep your house, or would you have sacrificed your home for your sibling? This situation touches on deep themes of family duty versus personal rights. What would you prioritize and why? Your thoughts and experiences matter to us, so please share them in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this story and the discussion it brings, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more engaging content. Your support helps us bring more stories and discussions like this to you.